Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. I hope everybody is well. Hope you're all having a fantastic bank holiday weekend. If you're having a bank holiday weekend in your region, good morning if you're overseas in Australia. VJ is normally around quite early. So yeah, good evening, folks, as well. How is everybody? What are you up to? What's your plans tonight? What are you hobbying? Are you still at work? Are you just kind of hanging and chilling? I'd love to know what you're up to. If you're new here tonight, please do say hello in the chat. Always good to, even if you're not a normal chatter, even if you don't like the kind of, if you just like to lurk in the background and listen to the chat, please do say hello. It's always good to know who we've got in the chats and say hello to some new faces. So let's, without any further ado, let's have a look and see who we have got. Ortega, nice and early. Hello, mate. I see you in the catch-up, mate. Marcus, nice to see you as well, fella. Ghost Winters as well, seeing the early bird and all that. Lord Maiden, nice to see you, sir. Mark Wright was in the nice and early as well. Hello to you. Where else are we up to here? Few more people chatting there. Peter Cooman, good evening, sir. Hope you are well. Blizzard says, please be advised I'm not painting Malifaux minis today as I'm fresh out of built stuff. Instead, I have some Warhammer Underworld's orc-like dudes. This is not a sign of the end times. You've been smashing out the Malifaux stuff. I've been heartily impressed with how much you've been doing. Christian, good evening to you, sir. Nice to see you in. Tony Howell, good evening to you as well. Ice Moon's in as well. Nice one. Tony saying, sorry the glue post was short and sweet but geared towards our novice modelling team. Do you know what, mate? Short and sweet works perfectly. That's what most people want, to be fair. Short, to the point, and that way they know exactly what they need to do. So yeah, thanks for that. John Estel, good evening to you, sir. He's working on some Astevians for Dead Zone using the shifter paints for the main colour. Which kind of shifter paints are you using? I've never used them before, so I've got no idea sort of how effective they are. James Zob, good evening to you. He said he's glad to be at his hobby desk for one of these. Nice to see you, fella. Good evening, James Bray, as well. Nice to see you, lad. Bobby Clark, good evening as well. More fantastic work I've been looking at on your Instagram again today. Chris Warden, hello to you. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, to Stu as well, Stu McMurtry. We've got Radek in as well. Seeing Dead Zone. Busy's in. Good evening to you, sir. Hello, Palmsy as well. We've got Cardos says hello. Maladjusted Quest says it's mid-afternoon here. It's only 2 p.m. Well, good afternoon to you. James Hanna, good evening. Peter Stockdale. James is saying he's printing order. Hang on, let me start this again. I'm planning out a printing order for Dragon's Rest STLs I just went for. Nice one, mate. Nice one. Yeah, we're talking about 3D printing tonight as well, so good timing on that one. We've got Bruce in as well saying, how are you, Andy? Hope all is well. All is very good, mate. The weather has been fantastic this weekend. We've had loads of sunshine. I've had a busy weekend with the family. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had stuff planned and we've been doing stuff. And then today's been a bit more chill, to be honest, but it's quite nice. We went out for a bit of a walk this afternoon around the local country park and a bit more of a chilled afternoon, a little bit of tidying in the shed, that kind of stuff. Nigel Jones, good evening to you, sir. Let's have a look. Christian said he's working. He was working. He's got red shoulders, rescued 2 bees, and tonight I plan on sleeping. I can imagine, mate. Yeah, working outdoors in this weather can't be much fun. So we've got Tolmar in as well. Hello to you. Derek Hodge, good evening, mate. How are you doing? Stu says, glorious weather on a UK bank holiday. I blame global warming. We've got to blame something. It's not like it happens very often, does it? Yorgum, good evening to you as well, mate. Where was that one? Bruce is in, remembering all those that served and sacrificed here in the US today. Is that What is it today then, mate? Like, is it I'm not that sort of up on the American sort of holidays and stuff like that. Ours is just kind of like a bank holiday, like a May Day bank holiday thing. I don't think it's ever really kind of, or I'm certainly not aware of it being kind of like linked to a specific thing. Marcus is saying, don't forget to drop a like. Thank you very much, mate. We've got 51 folks in and 26 likes. I'm sure we can push that up over 50. That would be nice. Tiny War Games, nice to see you in as well. This is what a glorious day it's been. It has been nice, mate. Luke's in here, bitches. Good morning, VJ. Hope you're well. Howdy, folks, says Hope Lives. Nice to see you as well. John says the Vallejo ones, they need to be airbrushed on, so can't make any mistakes with the brush. I'm impressed. And this one's green to lilac. Ah, nice one, mate. Jacob's his first time in a long time he's been able to listen at the start. Thank you, Memorial Day. That's what it is. Ah, okay. well, I don't say Happy Memorial Day, but yes, I hope all you over in the States are enjoying your Memorial Day as well. Tiny Wargames is cheeky plug. Enter code Monday now at Tiny Wargames for 20% off tonight only. I'll be quiet now. Please go and check out, if you're looking for a gaming mat, tinywargames. I want to say .co.uk. It might be .com, but I think it's .co.uk. And if you put the code in Monday, capital letters, you will get 20% off tonight only. Thank you very much, mate, for that code. Nicholas is in as well. Hello, Peter Nicholas. Warwick's in meow there. VJ says, time for a cuppa and then hit the painting table. It's a bit nippy here this morning. Going to run after the stream. Yeah, having a run a bit later, mate. Wow. Red Rose Wargaming. Good evening, Anna. How are you? Ice Moon saying, looking forward to seeing it all painted up. I don't know what we're talking about there now. VJ says, yeah, it's US Memorial Day weekend. I never really understand the overseas, or I never remember the overseas ones, I should say. I do well to remember the UK ones, to be fair. Yeah, thank you very much, Christian, for the link there to Tiny Wargames as well. So tonight, folks, we are talking 3D printing, and as you all know, if you watched my video a few months ago, I think it's almost 3 months to the day that I got my first ever 3D printer, which was a resin one, and very quickly after that, I then bought an FDM printer, or like a PLA plastic printer, for those that don't know the difference. And I've been running them. I've been kind of doing lots of different bits and pieces. And I thought now's a good chance after 3 months. I've used them enough to kind of give my opinions and things about how what I've learned. Have I changed my opinion on anything? Would I do anything differently this time if I was to start from scratch now? Knowing what I know, would I do anything different? So that's the main topic for tonight. If you've got any specific questions about printing, if you don't have a printer and you're still quite sort of I was going to say clueless, but I don't mean that to sound derogatory. You know, if you basically don't know a lot about them and you've got questions, if you're maybe a bit interested in picking one up and you've got some questions about it, feel free to pop them in the chat tonight, and I'll try and answer as many as I can. I'm obviously not a 3D printing expert, but I would say I've learned enough in the last few months that I can at least kind of either tell you what my experience is, or at least point you in the right direction about where you might be able to get information you want. So let's have a little look here as well. Vijay saying, yeah, later on today, he's going soft in his old age. Busey saying, some people were looking for gaming mats in the Discord. Good timing. They were, mate, you're right. Frederick says, best tasting printer resin. I will answer that straight away. Luckily, I've never had to get any in my mouth, so I don't tend to buy it on taste. Tony saying, a time of hobbying reflection. Yeah, I think it's nice to kind of like look back on stuff. It's easy to pick something up, to do a review on something, and then once you either whether you've played that game many times over time and you feel differently about it, or if it's some kind of sort of hobby tool like a printer, like an airbrush, it's dead easy to not really go back and like sort of like, what's your thoughts? How's it holding up? Is it still working okay? Or what would you do different? Would you still buy the same stuff? What did you buy? Have you bought anything else since then? All that kind of things. So yeah, so that's what tonight's chat's going to be about. VG says, I know enough to do some damage. Yeah, that's exactly the quote I would use, mate. I know enough to be dangerous, that's it. Peter says, I didn't finish my Malifaux gang after all. I found some details which got missed initially, then today decided to change the colour of the coats. You have got a couple of days left, mate. You've got another week, so you've got until anybody who is still taking part in the Malifaux challenge. I know it's June the 1st tomorrow, but you do have up until next Tuesday, which I think is June the 6th. It's either the 5th or the 6th. I think it's the 6th. Because we'll be showing them off on next Wednesday's hobby hangout. So yeah, you've still got time. Peter Mack, good evening to you, mate. How are you doing? Hope you've been enjoying a bit of nice weather as well while you're on the mend, while you're healing up. And I hope the weekend barbecue, I think it was this weekend, you were having a barbecue with your biker mates, wasn't it? So yeah, how we're doing numbers wise? We've got 56 in. Yeah, that's not too bad. June the 8th. Yeah, I'm all over the place with my dates. Yeah, thank you very much, folks. Keep me right. Peter says, went well, very drunk. That's the way to do it, mate. That is the way to do it. So yeah, I'll tell you what we'll do then. I will switch across to here. We will set this We'll set this away here. Christian says, came here to say hello. I'll see you in a couple of days if you do a resume. Do a resume. Tony says he's been a good boy, submitted his Malifaux, not Malifaux challenge. You have. And Christian saying, good night, guys. Good night, Christian. So I think we might as well dive straight into the chat tonight then, shouldn't we? So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is my experience of 3D printing after 3 months. And previously, I've made a video about when I'd really thought about I'd been looking into 3D printing for quite some time. I'd done a lot of research. I was hesitant about which one to buy. Do I buy a printer now? Do I wait for the next generation of improvements coming down the line and bits and pieces? But 3 months ago, I jumped in and I bought an Elegoo Mars Pro 2, Pro 2, whichever one's the right name for it. I jumped in and bought one of those. It cost me £280, which I thought at the time isn't too bad in comparison. It's not super cheap, but compared to some of the newer stuff, which were £500, £600, £700, £800, I thought it was enough to spend to kind of give it a sort of a bit of a punt and see if it was something that I would use and see if it was something I enjoyed. So I also bought at the time as well, I bought the wash and cure station, the Elegoo Mars wash and cure station, cost me £115, and then I obviously bought all the bits and pieces like that isopropyl alcohol and the gloves and all the other bits and pieces that you kind of need, the resin as well, obviously. And I was totally impressed. I kind of printed off the little, you get like a little Buddha sort of sculpture thing. No, not a Buddha, sorry. You get the Rook, like the sort of like the little the chess pieces to print off. So I printed those off just to make sure everything was working okay. They printed off fine. And then I dove straight in and started printing off sort of bigger bits and pieces. And what I started with, actually, I have set up a bit of a separate camera here tonight as well, and we'll get over to some bits and pieces. So I started off by printing off this. This was like, other than the test piece, this was the next thing I printed off. So what I'll do is I'll pop that down on here, and we can have a look at that. So this was what I printed. This was a Judge Dredd bust. It was a free file, which was on Thingiverse or something. I forget where it was from now. But what you can see from it, if I can get in, and I can't see the screen too close, so if this doesn't look great for the catch-up one, we'll put some photographs in its place. But what you can see on this is it is super smooth, super detailed. It stands about 6 inches tall, something like that. And I was really, really kind of pleased with just how nicely it was when it came out. I don't know if it'll focus very well if I go into kind of like the Dread badge there. You might be able to see it. There we go. Yeah, the quality of it was fantastic. And at that point, I was I was sure at least what I'd bought was going to be able to let me print off the things that I wanted to print. I also printed off this, which was my Darth Vader model. And I actually painted this one up as well. I did a very, very quick paint job on it. So this gives you an idea. I literally sprayed it red from underneath. I hollowed it out as well, just to kind of make sure that there was no sort of resin left inside it. I sprayed it black, and I picked out with gloss on the eyes and stuff like that. And that might not be focusing particularly well because of the stuff in the background, but quality of it, again, I was more than happy with it. There's no real layer lines or anything like that. I was happy. So at that point, happy with my purchase. I was still getting used to sort of using the slicing software. I didn't have to do a lot of stuff with putting in supports at that point in time. And I was kind of learning as I went. The next thing I started printing after that was base inserts and bases for my miniatures. And that was when I started to get into this kind of stuff. Let me flick over again. So we've got things like, I appreciate the light's a little bit bright from above there as well. But we're starting to get these sort of 3D printed bases. If that will focus there, will it? Of course it won't focus. There we go. Started to print off these 3D printed bases. And then I started to do things like little bits of scatter terrain. Let's make sure we get it on the actual camera for a change. That would be good, wouldn't it? Little bits of scatter terrain, things like barrels, things like little kind of half barrels and stuff like that. Pop it in, and yeah, I was really impressed with the bases. Here's some of the bigger Wild West Exodus, Mr. Ears model. and the base insert itself was 3D printed. So again, I was kind of happy with that. And then obviously here's one of the drum of the Nautilus one, which I painted up as well. This was I think this is like an 80mm base or something like that. And that gives you an idea just of the kind of things that are possible just by using the resin printer. So yeah, what I would say from the resin side of things, I've been really happy with it. I'll go into the kind of the things that I've learned about 3D printing and the things I've changed my opinions on and things I'll do differently, or I would do differently if I'd started over from scratch. I'll go into them in a second, because what I did very soon after buying that, I decided to buy an FDM printer, which is the plastic, the PLA plastic stuff, because what I very quickly found was the resin one is perfect for those scatter pieces. It's perfect for printing miniatures. It's perfect for printing bases and things like these kind of like resin busts and things like that. But if I wanted to have some terrain as well, I'm obviously getting ready to start filming battle reports now, and I needed some terrain. So I decided to take a bit of a punt. And after seeing some reviews online, Elegoo, who make the resin printer that I already have, had released a Neptune 2, which was an FDM printer, and it was £150. And for that price, I really thought, like, again, I bought it from Amazon. I wasn't sent it. This is not kind of like a sponsored video. Nobody sent me any product or anything like that. I bought them with my own hard-earned cash. But because of the experience I had with the Elegoo resin printer, I decided to try out the Elegoo Neptune. So I started off again. I printed off the little Buddha things, which is like the test piece that comes, and then I dove straight into printing off some big pieces of terrain. And this is what I've been printing off really. So let me I'll move this across a little bit. So this is quite a sizable. I'll move the camera here. So quite a sizable piece of terrain. If bearing in mind the size of this model as well, that gives you a bit of an idea of scale as well, and obviously that's a pretty big model there as well. So I started printing off this terrain. It printed off in about 7 pieces, something like that. So there's things like the roof comes off as well, so you can actually play inside the buildings and stuff. So I printed off that. I also printed off this one as well. If I move that around, so the light from the light doesn't blind it out. I printed off this one as well, which is part of the same range of that house. Again, the top comes off as well, so you can play inside it. And I'll just show you the kind of the detail inside these things as well, because there is like sort of obviously the floor and things are all detailed and all the windows inside. And these slots in the top, you can actually put bits of clear perspex down the inside of the window frames as well, to put windows in them. So I was really impressed with the quality coming off them. And then just this week I decided to try a different type of file, and this was a Wild West Saloon from Corvus Games Terrain. And what I did with this one is, you can see the saloon sign along the front. I actually used the resin printer to print that one off, so I could get some detail into the sign itself, and then obviously the plastic, the 3D PLA plastic to do the main building. Now, one of the things about the way 3D prints with plastic is it prints in layers, so you do get some layer lines. But what I found, especially with the design of this, it's not. I wonder if it's going to focus there, but it's not that noticeable. You might be able to see it there. I mean, it probably looks worse on camera there because of the way the light's hitting it and stuff, but it's actually not as bad as I first thought. And then after this kind of stuff, so of these, I've then also kind of got into trying to do some designing of my own stuff. So I basically designed and printed off. Let me just tip this up because that light above is quite bright. I printed off this dashboard for Kings of War Armada, where I can put my cards in and put my tokens in and stuff. Let me just tilt it a little bit there. Obviously, I had to put my obligatory logo in there as well. But I designed that myself. I kind of measured up the cards, measured up the tokens, and designed it myself and printed it off. So I've kind of... Let me put that camera down. So what I've been doing is printing off stuff from files I've purchased. I've been printing off stuff from files I've been sent to sort of testing things. I've been designing my own things as well, and I've been using both resin and FDM stuff as well. So what I want to talk about now is things I've learned since kind of over the last 3 months of printing. And the first one I would say is it's not as hard as you'd think. I think there's a lot of talk online about, like you'll need to be able to kind of do this, and sort of getting the bed level can be quite difficult, whether that's printing on PLA or printing with resin. You need to be able to kind of do all the supports and stuff. It's not as hard as you think. There's so much information out there that kind of takes you through a lot of this step by step, that you don't have to spend kind of days and weeks sort of surrounding yourself and basically giving up everything else in your life and trying to become an expert. There are also so many files that come pre-supported when you purchase them as well. So I've been obviously getting some of these resin bases. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just show you this particular one. And so this resin base, I'll focus in there. You can see it's kind of like a forest sort of detail one. Even on the back of it, it's got like a little kind of cutout there as well, where you can put a magnet in the base. But if you can see, I don't know if you can see those little dots. You might be able to see them there. That's basically where the supports go. And these files all came pre-supported, so I didn't even have to worry about doing any of that stuff. The files that I've been printing off, all those buildings, they've all been designed to be printed without any supports, so you don't even have to worry about putting any of those things in. And like I say, the resin bases and stuff, I've had no issues with them. This model itself didn't need any supports either when I printed it. So there's a lot of stuff that is designed with not having supports in mind. There's some things that's designed and has sort of put in supports and things, or pre-supported, and I know they're not always perfect, but they're a good starting point. And if you have, you can learn enough to kind of get by quite quickly without becoming like an overnight expert. The next one is, and it's something I think it's almost a bit of a common misconception about 3D printing, is everybody thinks that like, oh, it's another hobby, it's something else that I'll need to kind of divulge I'll need to give all my time up to, and it's a complete new hobby. And I would say it doesn't have to be a hobby on its own. I've not really got into 3D printing as a hobby. I've been using it as a tool to do stuff that I want. Printing the terrain. I literally kind of get the file online, put it onto the memory card, put the memory card into the, obviously you've got to do the slicing and stuff, but we'll talk about that later. Put the memory card into the printer, press play, and just kind of walk away and leave it. Know roughly when it's going to finish and check on it now and again and things. And whether by a look or by doing a bit of research and being very careful, I've never really had any major disasters. I've not had those looks like bird nest type things, like spaghetti junction things with printer stuff everywhere. I've not had any. I've had failed prints on my resin printer, but it's very easy to clean them up and sort them out. I've not damaged anything. I've not broken anything. I've not really had any issues. And most of the time, if something's failed, it's been pretty obvious what's done it. It's been an error on my behalf, or I've clicked one of the wrong settings or something like that, but it's pretty easy to work out. So what I would say is it doesn't need to be a hobby. If you're interested in 3D printing because you want to print some nice bases, you want to print some kind of like scenic bases for your minis, or you want to build some like a nice kind of selection of terrain for your home games, I think it can be as easy as buying the files, putting them on your computer, slicing them down through the software, which is free and is pretty intuitive as well. There's plenty of online tutorials which take you through the basics. You can start digging into it if you want to. But most of the stuff I've done has been pretty much with standard settings. I haven't really kind of gone to town on it. What else have I learned? I've also learned that it is worth doing the research before you buy. There's lots of different printers out there. There's lots of different kind of raw materials, like different types of PLAs, different types of resins. And it is worth doing some research. Don't just kind of say, oh, that looks cheap, I'll buy that one. Or that one's expensive. Camera just blinked there. Or that looks expensive, it must be a really good one. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. Just do your research, know what you want to use it for, know roughly what kind of things you're wanting to print, and then just do a little bit of research online. I chose Elegoo because it seems like they as a company are really responsive to any kind of concerns that people have, any customer service inquiries. I also bought it from Amazon because it was Elegoo tend to sell stuff through Amazon as well. They have an Amazon store. If there was any issues, I knew the customer returns with Amazon, I could send it straight back without any kind of quibbles. So just kind of do a bit of research. You can buy them from other companies online and you might save a few quid. But if you're buying it like from China, for example, direct, and you have any issues, what's it going to be like kind of sending it back or getting a return or getting a repair or something? So just go into it with your eyes open. Another thing I've learned, and again, it's something that people talk about all the time, this is not going to kill the gaming industry anytime soon. This is not going to put Games Workshop out of business. This is not the second coming of Jesus kind of thing. It's a really, really good tool, and it's allowing people to make some fantastic miniatures at home, but it's about as plug and play as it'll ever be. It's not going to really get to a point in the future, I don't think, where resin printers, for example, print, clean, take all the supports off, cure them themselves, and then sort of just pop out this printed mini at the other side. I don't think we're ever really going to get there. And that's basically, I think it's as, like I say, it's as user-friendly, it's as plug-and-play as it's ever going to be, and I think that's still too much hassle for a lot of people. I personally don't think it's hassle, but I think people who just like to go and buy a box of minis and build them up are much happier with with how it is currently. So yeah, it's not an industry killer. I think there's room out there for 3D printed minis to kind of stand alone. But for me personally, I've not really bought it for 3D printed minis. I've bought it to print all manner of other things, like doing things like little dashboards for my games, printing out terrain to kind of give me a nice aesthetic for something. Like that saloon that I've got here. The file to print this out, it came with the option to have windows kind of filled in or without windows. It gave me the option to print. It's quite a good fit actually. This just take the top off. So the obviously the roof comes off as well. There's a floor in the bottom there as well, and then this comes off. And there was an option, if I don't want to force it on camera and end up snapping it off now. No, we'll not take that one off. But there was an option, you can see it there. There was an option to have a floor printed in it. I don't know why I have to keep flickering. To have a floor printed in it or to have no floor in it. I just decided not to have a floor in mine. It saved some plastic. It saved a bit of print time as well. And obviously when it's on the table, you won't see it anywhere. So, and that cost me £6 for that file. So it's not killing the kind of gaming industry anytime soon. What I also learned was the quality of the print output is not dependent upon how much money you spend. So better sort of more expensive files won't necessarily be better quality. More expensive printers won't necessarily be better quality. And just because something is pretty cheap or low cost, shall we say, like for example, the printer that I'm printing out sort of this type of stuff with, if I can hold that one up, and we're going to drop that one. I won't do it. Like I say, this saloon here, the printer I'm printing that out with was £150. It's pretty much one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest printer on the market. So it's not linked. It's not a case of, well, I should spend £500-600 on a printer because I'll get better quality. There tends to be other things in there. There might be some better quality components. It might be a bigger print sort of bed or something like that. But again, as I said before, do your research, because if you're just dipping your toe in and you just want to print out, like sort of give it a try, you don't have to spend a fortune. It's not exactly out of your price range. The other thing I learned, the wash and cure station that I bought was 100% money well spent. I'm very, very happy I bought it. I'm glad I did. I've got into a routine now where essentially I just take the finished print off. I put that finished print, so it's hanging upside down from the resin print bed. I put a little bracket on, clip it inside the wash thing, put the lid down and press wash. I then take it off, put it inside the cure station, press cure, and it's not messy. I don't get resin everywhere. I'm not having to kind of like constantly worry about sort of like flicking bits of wet resin around and sort of dripping resin everywhere. It's just a really, really clean process. You can obviously just use like buckets and things and clean it and swill them around and all that manner of other things. But for me, the money I spent on the wash and cure station was money well spent, and I'm absolutely glad I did. Another thing I've learned is there is a lot of conflicting information out there. And the more you delve into it, the more you start looking, the more advice you seek sometimes, the more you'll get information that completely kind of conflicts with it. What I've found is, if you find something that works for you and you're happy with the quality of your prints, kind of leave it. Don't mess about. There might be all these videos online saying about how to improve the quality, how to do this, how to do that. I'd kind of ignore them at the moment. If you're getting good print quality off and you're happy with it, kind of stick with that until you understand a bit more about it, or you've printed a few more things and you've run into a few problems and know how to fix them or whatever. But if you start chasing every little piece of information that somebody tells you, you'll be kind of dumbfounded about all the different types of resins, all the different types of sort of PLA, sort of plastic and stuff. If you find something that works for you, just stick with it and don't get sidetracked. Otherwise, it not only becomes a hobby, it becomes a full-time job of trying to understand, well, is it any better? I've changed these settings. Am I really seeing any noticeable difference? You end up having to print the same thing off with different settings to see what the difference is. If you find something that works, just stick with it. And I've also found that having the right printer for the right job is great. I appreciate, I'm quite fortunate that I've had the money to buy a resin printer and a PLA printer. But like I showed with that Wild West Saloon there, being able to print off the saloon sign in resin to get some really nice crisp detail, and being able to print off the rest of the building PLA for the physical size of it has been really nice. The big building that I did before, the big house, I printed the doors off with the resin printer, which got really nice kind of crisp detail, the wood grain and stuff on the doors and around the door handle and stuff. And that really helped, where the rest of the building was all printed in plastic. So it's not a you must have sort of both type thing, but understanding what you want to print and using the best tool for the job. Like, for example, if you want to print off 28mm miniatures, do not buy a PLA printer. No matter what anybody tells you, they're personally, in my opinion, they're not good enough for printing off like sort of 28mm miniatures. They're great for big terrain pieces. If you want to print off miniatures, go with resin. If you want to print off big terrain pieces, go with the PLA, but use the right tool for the job if you like. So a few things that I've changed my opinions on. FDM quality, this is the plastic printers, is not as bad as I thought. So what I'd seen online, I'd seen some absolute horror story pictures of really, really bad layer lines. I'd seen people using them to try and print out kind of 28mm miniatures, and the quality, I saw it and I was thinking, it's not for me. I don't want to be messing about with that. It's not going to be good enough. But then I must admit, it was Corvus Games Terrain, and they do a really good range of buildings which are suitable for either Walking Dead or Marvel Crisis Protocol. And I saw a video online of somebody painting one up, and it looked great. It didn't look anywhere near the bad quality that I'd seen elsewhere. And I started looking into it at that point, thinking, is it a really expensive printer? Are they using something sort of flash? Are they using something that's out of my price range? And I found out they weren't. They were using a relatively entry-level printer. So I thought that's at that point where I decided I'll kind of take a punt and I'll see what it looks like. And honestly, I've been more than happy with the quality. If you get up really close, yes, you can see some layer lines in them. But it's not distracting. You don't see it when it's painted, really. I mean, that house that I did before, in fact, I'll see if I can kind of just reach it over. I don't want to end up dropping it, but let's grab it here. Oh, this big house that I did, you can kind of see the size of it. And this is all PLA printed, apart from that, as I said before, this little door here is printed in resin, but this is all PLA printed. I sprayed it with a brown spray. I sort of painted the grey bits for the stone. I dry brushed them with a lighter grey. The wood was just the primed brown spray can, and then I dry brushed with a kind of a cream colour, and then I painted in these kind of cream areas around the windows. And the roof was just a heavy kind of like an overbrush, almost like a dry brush of just a blue paint. It's just one coat of it, but because I've done it in a few because I've done it in a more dry brush motion, there's a bit of depth to it. But you can dry brush this. You don't have to worry about how do I paint it, for example, because of these layer lines. Well, I can't dry brush it because it's going to show everything up. it's actually not that bad. The quality of the printer is more than good enough that you will not notice. I'm sure that you can see that on camera. It doesn't kind of, it looks, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think it looks great. So let me pop this down. I'm more than happy. It really surprised me. I've completely changed my mind about the quality of FDM if you're using it to print the right things. And I've changed my mind about kind of like sculpting stuff as well. I always said that it was something that I wasn't really interested in. I'm not really interested in doing my own designs. But as I showed before, printing off, I designed these from scratch. There's a piece of software in Windows which is free called 3D Maker, I think it's called, or something like that. I just used that. It was really, really simple to do. I've not even looked at any online tutorials. I worked it out from the from kind of just messing about with it. There might be better ways to do it, but it worked out great. If you're trying to sculpt things like this, you're going to need a bit more kind of like time and a bit more sort of patience and some better software. But for sort of very sort of basic type stuff, making little boxes for your tokens, making tokens, that kind of stuff, it's just nowhere near as hard as I thought it would be. And I've found that really useful. What would I do differently? There's probably only one thing that I would do differently, because actually I feel like I've been happy with the purchases I made, and even when I've made mistakes, like sort of like printing things off wrong, it's been a bit of a learning curve really. But what I would do differently is when I see sort of PLA plastic or resin on offer, is buy in bulk, because it's not that it's expensive, it's just that if you see it cheaper and you buy like one reel of plastic, and then when you come to need another one and it's gone back up to full price again, you're kind of wasting money by having not bought more of it in advance. So when you see stuff on offer, like sort of stock up, if you like, I appreciate it's not sort of super cheap. Somebody asking in the question here as well about what does it cost. I think at the minute I've paid between £25 and £35 for a kilogram of resin, depending upon what type of resin. And I've paid about between £18 and £23 for PLA plastic for a 1 kilogram reel of plastic. So yeah, it's like saving maybe a fiver on a reel of plastic can be quite a big saving when you're buying it sort of regularly. So yeah, that would be the only thing I would change. In the past, I've bought a reel when one's run out, and I've only bought one because I didn't want to what I didn't want to do was buy something and find out that actually it wasn't kind of like, it wasn't doing a very good job, it wasn't printing. But then as I've printed more stuff off, and what I do is I just keep going back and buying the same PLA plastic now. Everybody tells me about this, like there's this kind of color, there's this type of PLA, this stuff gives better results. This one, I'm happy with what it's printing, so I just keep printing with the same materials and with the same settings, and it just takes one more variable out of it. It takes a headache away, and like I say, I'm really, really happy with this stuff. So those are my main points. That's kind of what I've learned. That's what I've changed my opinions on, and that's what I would do differently. If you've got any kind of questions or anything you agree or disagree with, please put them down in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you think. But you folks in the chat, you've obviously been asking questions while I've been rabbiting away. So let's have a look and see what you've been chatting about here. So let's have a look. Christian says, have you tried figures on the Neptune? No, I haven't, mate, because I know for a fact that there's absolutely no point. I just don't think I'd be happy with the quality. I'm absolutely sort of over the moon with the quality of figures on the resin one. I just think it's kind of the right tool for the right job. Christian said about busts. I have done the busts. I've got a number of busts here actually. So this one was one that Christian Reeves in the chat actually printed off for me and sent me as a gift, and it was one of the things that got me looking at just how good the quality was. This was the Deadpool one I've been painting up on the live streams, and although you won't be able to see it very well because it's primed black, this is a Hulk sort of miniature as well, printed on resin. And so yeah, like I say, I think it's the right tool for the right job really. That's what's more important. Let me have a little look down here. Tasty Brain Drain says he's hobbying while catching the stream. Nice one, mate. Let me have a little look down here. Peter says, so you've kind of dived down the rabbit hole that you were scared of. I did a bit, mate, yeah. But to be honest, I think I've kind of been, I was a little bit scared of it, purely on the basis of the fact that there is so much conflicting information out there. And I honestly, it's just not as difficult, it's not as scary as I think as people sometimes make it out to be. And I haven't dived down the route of making it a brand new hobby. I'm using them as a tool. In the same way, imagine like sort of, if you want to cook something, like let's use the cooking analogy again, right? If you just want to cook something, if you want to get a ready meal and bang it in the microwave, then you don't need to research, you don't need to go into like sort of loads of like sort of detail about, well, what kind of microwave is going to be the best one to cook this meal. You just buy a microwave, you put your 5 minutes on and you press kind of go. And I'm finding that with 3D printers is that actually, as long as you kind of get the setup right, and as long as you're happy with the settings, I'm just not feeling the need to kind of to dig any deeper and to kind of learn about all the other things it probably can do, because it's doing all the things I want it to do. So, Gary Powell, nice to see you, mate. VG says, I found resin printing to be incredibly easy with just a basic amount of YouTube and you can get it done. Yeah, I'd agree, mate. I'd agree. Marcus says, I will be starting a $450 US commission for build a carry case and painting a 100-piece of Adeptus Mechanicus army. Wow. VG says, I will admit I'm still pretty hesitant about PLA printing, but I have plenty of terrain, so not in any rush. I think, to be honest, mate, I wanted it purely for terrain. If you're not really wanting to print out big pieces of terrain, or like sort of parts for things, like sort of prototyping type things, I'm not sure I'd bother with the plastic stuff. But for me, printing out the big kind of terrain pieces is exactly what I need. For what I've printed out, for what it's cost me for the printer, and what I've spent in plastic, I'm already saving money basically on what it would have cost me to buy these pieces of terrain. Like I would hate to think, I mean, I showed you this big house thing. I would hate to think how much this would cost me to buy like a resin cast like house like this, or to buy a plastic modeler I would have to build myself. I don't know how much it would cost. I would see that as a piece on its own, because like I said before, the roof comes off and you do have an inside, but then this comes off as well and you have another floor down and the doors open and stuff as well. So I would think you've got to be getting up towards like kind of probably about 100 quid or something like that, especially if it was in resin. Put it down so I don't drop it. I think if you were buying it in resin, it would be about 100 quid. If it was a plastic kit, I still think you're probably paying about 80, 90 quid or something like that for it. It's a big old piece of plastic. So yeah, I mean, if you think I paid 150 quid for the printer, I had to buy the files, but I bought loads of files and that for that kind of stuff. And it probably used about, I would say probably about £10 worth of maybe £10-15 worth of plastic to print it. So I'm kind of, I would say I'm not a million, and then obviously I've done loads of other stuff as well. Moose Music, and hello fella, how are you doing? Bit of chat there. Board Game Dungeon says, what printer would you recommend? It's hard to say what I'd recommend because I haven't tried lots of other sort of ones. So I can only tell you the one I bought based upon my own research and whether I've been happy with it or not. So from a resin point of view, I bought an Elegoo Mars Pro 2. And from a PLA point of view, I bought an Elegoo Neptune 2. I've been really happy with them. I like the quality of them. I've not had any kind of like manufacturing problems with them. So I would recommend like the stuff I've bought, but that's not to say there are not better printers out there, better deals, cheaper printers that might be just as good or maybe not quite as good, but good value for money. I can't really kind of compare them, but those are the two that I bought, and I've been really happy with them. VG saying, yeah, Elegoo, Frozen, any cubic resin printers are all pretty much the same these days. I think a lot of it, mate, to be honest, it tends to be what's the community like around them. So when people are kind of sharing information about sort of settings and things like that, and what's the company like for dealing with if there's any like issues with kind of broken parts or any problems. I think that's probably the differences between the companies, and the prices are all relatively sort of lining up a little bit now. Board Game Dungeon saying, is the plastic expensive? We just talked about prices there. It's you can get cheaper plastic, you can get much more expensive plastic as well. But I was kind of told, don't go with the super cheap stuff, you'll get loads of problems with it. So I kind of stayed off the super cheap stuff. I might try it in the future, but it's not that much cheaper. It's probably like £13-14 a reel, as opposed to about £18 when the stuff I buy is on deal. So it's not a massive saving on it. But yeah, you can certainly pay sort of £30, £40 a reel for stuff as well, if it's like fancy kind of like speckled stuff and things. Tony said he weighed up the pros and cons of a 3D printer as he was tempted and aware of the undertaking. I simply couldn't justify one, as I only want a 3D printed mini once in a blue moon. Yeah, I think if you're only doing it for the odd mini and stuff like that, it would take buying a lot of minis. Like, let's say, let's just to round it up, let's say a single sort of hero type mini costs about £15. You'd have to be buying about sort of 20, 25 of them before you were starting to kind of break even, at least on the with a resin printer. However, if you're using it for a number of other things as well, then it's different. Like I say, it's kind of the right tool for the right job, I suppose. Moose is saying he'll get fully obsessed with me printing thousands of minis in terrain you couldn't keep up. That's something I found I've not done. I know a lot of people do say, like, I've gone nuts. Instead of buying loads of minis, I've bought loads of STL files and I've gone nuts with it. I found I haven't done that. I've been really careful with what I've sort of spent. I was looking for certain types of terrain, and I looked around and researched it. I bought the files that printed off that kind of fantasy building, but it was part of a Kickstarter thing that had already funded. So had already funded and had already been sent out to backers, and I just did a late pledge and bought the files. The Corvus Games terrain stuff, I kind of seen them online. I knew they were good. So I decided to buy one of those just to try out. And the base files, again, all of these bases and the toppers and stuff, I backed a Kickstarter. That basically, I think the difference thing with 3D printed Kickstarters is a lot of them, the files are already done, like when the Kickstarter goes live. So once it funds, they send out the files pretty quick afterwards. So it's not a case of waiting like 18 months, like it is with like a board game or something like that. But other than that, I don't think I've really bought anything. I've just bought the things as I've wanted them, and when I've bought them, I've printed stuff out. I haven't then gone and bought like 10 times more stuff, because I'm not going to be printing them out, at least until I'm finished printing all the stuff that I want to print with the files I've just bought. I've just spent last weekend preparing my spare bathroom to turn in a printing lab. That's exactly what I did as well, mate. Christian, thank you for sharing the links there as well, mate, for the t-shirts and the hoodies. Tony saying Corvus do some lovely builds. Yeah, I mean the Wild West one, whilst it's really nice, it's relatively basic looking, because Wild West buildings were relatively basic looking. But some of the other stuff they do, the Star Wars sort of terrain, or Star Wars style terrain, I should say, and the stuff for like Marvel Crisis Protocol and stuff, they're really, really nice. To be honest, the buildings are so nice, it almost makes me want to buy Marvel Crisis Protocol just to print them buildings off and play games with them. Tony says, I didn't know how long it takes to print. I'd love to buy a copy of that building, as I'd love to go mad on it. It's funny because technically you are not allowed to sell prints. So if I buy a file, that's all I'm allowed to do. I'm allowed to print as many of them for myself, but I'm not allowed to sell them and make any money from them, for example. I'm not allowed to sell the finished files, finished prints or anything like that. But in terms of how long it takes to print, I mean, that big building did take quite some time. It probably took about a week. I think it's in, if I remember right, it's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's in 7 pieces, and some of those pieces take like over 24 hours to print. Some of them were a little bit quicker. So yeah, it was probably about a week's printing. So it's not fast, but if I'd ordered a kit like that, it probably would have took like 3 or 4 days to be shipped out anyway. So like in terms of that, you're not really like sort of saving, or you're not losing that much time by printing it. Let's have a little look here. Tiny Wargame saying Tinkercad is easy to use for beginners when making basic models. And Christian saying, yeah, it's 3D Builder. That's the one, mate. Yeah, I would imagine it probably is. Somebody else has told me about that as well. I guess I'm not going to be doing anything sort of like more artistic or sculpted. I've made some like little tokens for myself. I made some little spaces for fitting like a wine rack thing at home, and I've obviously made these little dashboards as well for Armada. But they're relatively kind of straightforward. If you're starting to get into like sculpting, like sort of more sort of detailed, like typed sculpts, if you like, yeah, you'll definitely need something a bit more, a bit better than what I was using with the free Windows stuff. John says, when are those dashboards for Armada available? I hadn't considered selling them, mate, to be honest, but if anybody wants any, I'm sure I can sort something out. I think the problem is by the time they take quite, like, I mean, that probably takes about 2 hours to print off, and obviously for Armada you're going to want a few of them, where I would imagine people are buying like sort of MDF ones, which are probably relatively cheap. Laser kind of cutting is probably a lot quicker. But yeah, if people are interested, mate, there's nothing trademarked on that kind of thing. I'm not putting any logos on it. It's, you know, it's a dashboard to be used with a ship game. So Board Game Dungeon says, can printers do both PLA and resin printing? No, mate, they work in completely different ways. So a resin printer essentially has a bath of resin, and a UV light is shone through an LCD screen, where some of the areas are blocked off so that they don't cure, and basically where you've got the layer of the model, the UV light cures that part of resin, and then basically it sticks to like a metal bed, and the metal bed is basically raised up as each layer is kind of printed, if you like. Plastic, so for example, like that would be printed upside down like that, and every layer from the start is basically like sort of printed out, and this bed like lifts up out of it, and then the whole thing's finished like that. The PLA ones work the other way around, where it starts like that, flat on the bed, and there's basically like a nozzle which pushes through hot plastic and lays down those layer lines, and basically builds up from the bottom up to the top. So they work in completely different ways. One's a bath of resin with UV light. One is basically like a bed with a moving nozzle, or a moving bed, or a combination of both, which basically squirts out hot plastic in a very simplistic term. VG says, the real problem is when you get your settings and materials dialed in and then you can't get that resin, you have to research or take a risk again. To be honest, mate, that's why I've just kind of stuck with the Elegoo resin. It might be a bit more expensive. There might be cheaper resins out there, but I can't imagine that the Elegoo branded resin is going to kind of disappear anytime soon. Jim says, sounds like a positive experience, mate. That house is really something to behold. It's been a lot more rewarding. It's been a lot easier. It's been a lot less taxing. It hasn't become like a hobby. Like I literally kind of, if I buy a new file to print something off, I go through it, I slice all the parts, I put all the sliced parts onto the memory card, and then I put it into the printer, select one of them, press play, and kind of I tend to watch the first layer go down with the PLA plastic. I watch the first layer go down to make sure that looks all right, because getting your first layer adhered, as you'll know, is make or break. If it doesn't stick down properly, then the rest of it's not going to print very well. So I tend to watch that, and then once that's done, I kind of just wander away and forget about it, and come back roughly when I know. Like, for example, if something's going to take about 17 hours, I'll set it away kind of tea time, and then when I get up in the morning, it's pretty much done type thing. Yeah, so it's been pretty simple. I've not found that it's become a hobby. Lord Maiden says, I'm going to need a moment to paint a figure that reminded me of something. Some things cannot be unseen. I don't know if I want to know what it was, mate. Andrew Fairbanks, hello, fella. He's saying, afternoon, blackjacker didgeridoos. Taking the twins for a drive to let their mom nap. I think I'm back on the hobby train, but now I'm addicted to buying 40k. Oh, it's a slippery slope, mate. It's a slippery slope. Gary Paul says, if you ask me to print it, probably £100 is fair for the time. Yeah, I think that's kind of where my head was thinking. It's time, really. Like, the time to me is not really kind of like, it's not taking up my time. I'm not physically having to kind of like do anything while it's printing. But it's I would imagine if you were buying it as a finished kind of model or something like that to make it worthwhile, yeah, I would imagine it would be about 100 quid. Mallet just is saying, what would you say that house cost to print, not including the file? It took less than a kilogram reel of plastic, so it was probably about 13 quid, something like that, £12, £13, something like that. I would say that's what it cost to print. Not including, obviously, electricity and the cost of the printer and all that type of stuff. But in plastic, it probably cost about £13. Christian sharing the link for the merch there. Thank you very much. Busey saying, what's the electric bill when you have the PLA one and running 24/7? Noticed any difference? We're going on new electric tariffs across Spain from tomorrow. If I'm perfectly honest, mate, I've not looked. I've not stuck that close to it yet, and only having it for 3 months, I probably haven't seen a difference in the bill. And I guess because sort of, I guess I'll probably not see it until the next lot of bills come in. I haven't got like a little sort of a smart meter or anything like that. But it's not like it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like like while I printed that house, it was obviously running for a few days. But then I might not print something else off for like a few days or a week or something like that. Sam Palmer says, love my printers. They work fantastic when they work, but when they go wrong, they're a pain. I've not really found any major issues so far with things going wrong. I know there's things I need to kind of keep on top of and make sure you kind of grease the lead screws, make sure that you keep the belt tight, make sure you keep it clean. Like the print bed, for example, for the PLA printer, I use a bit of isopropyl alcohol and clean down the bed and stuff, like after every print, every couple of prints, to make sure that there's no kind of grease or anything on it. And to be fair, everything's working fine. I check the bed level maybe once every few weeks just to make sure it's not being knocked or anything like that. But yeah, I've not had any major issues yet. Warwick says, you just need to visit people and accidentally leave a printed building while picking up a bit of their cash they left out. Andrew says, so what's the cheap starter airbrush of 3D printers? To be honest, I mean, from a resin one, I think if you're really just looking to get started and you really want something cheap that'll get the job done, I don't think you can look past the Elegoo Mars, the entry one. They've been on sale for about £86, something like that. Like as low as that. I think around Christmas time they were going for about 110, 120. I think if you're just wanting to get started and you just want to try it out, they are super cheap. I would personally recommend spending a little bit more. The one that I got a better quality, kind of a 4K screen, which it's got a 2K screen, I should say, which speeds up the printing. It makes it a bit faster. So I would personally spend a little bit more. But if you're just wanting to kind of get in and do the basic stuff, certainly the Elegoo Mars, the original one, is still a really, really good printer. As for the PLA printing, the one I've got was pretty much the cheapest one on the market at £150. It's based on it's based on an Ender 3, which is like another 3D printer with some bits of upgraded parts and some downgraded parts. So I'd certainly, from a PLA perspective, the problem with the Neptune 2s is they sell them through their Amazon shop, and as soon as they go on sale, they sell out pretty quick. So you've just got to kind of check every day for them. But yeah, when the I would heartily recommend that as an entry level one. Let's have a look. Tony saying, yeah, 1 week print time is rough. As you know, with the love of scratch building, I'd probably have more fun building it. See, that to me is the exact reason why this works perfectly for me, because it takes about a week to print it, but I haven't got to sit there and do it for a week. It's working. It's like me having somebody sitting next door scratch building the building for me for a week, and then at the end of it, I've got the building done. I don't really enjoy the scratch building, and even if I did, it would take up an entire work. It would take up a week, like a working week, if you like, where I could be making videos, I could be painting miniatures, I could be like recording gameplay, I could be doing many, many other things. So for me, for all it takes quite a while to print something off, that's dead time because I'm not having to do anything with it. It's working while I'm asleep, if you like, and that's the beauty of it as well. It's not like I'm kind of it's not taking up my working time, and me working on my own, time's quite precious. So I have to kind of like, that's why 3D printing for me is absolutely perfect. I'm not having to build model kits. I'm not having to kind of like clean off mold lines, any of that type of stuff. There's a little bit of kind of cleanup, just in super glue and stuff together and things, but minimal. But it's just working away in the background. But Board Game Dungeon said, would it not make better sense to buy a resin printer for printing both terrain and small things, or is it just a matter of cost because resin's more expensive? Kind of. So the resin printers that are big enough to print off things like these buildings, for example, probably cost nearer £600-800. So they're 3 times the price of the resin printer that I bought. So they are a lot more expensive. And resin is more expensive than plastic. So I'm not really sure how much it would probably cost in resin. Where it cost me about probably £13 to print that house, it might have cost maybe about £30 in resin, which is not a huge difference, granted. But then it would have cost me like an extra £400-500 for the printer that had a big enough bed to print off the parts of the building. So build size, if you like, is one of the big issues when it comes to resin printers. The bigger the build plate, the more expensive the printer becomes, because obviously a lot of the cost is in the actual size of the screen itself. James says, typical mate, just had my first print to start to turn into a bird's nest. Tiny saying Elegoo resin's a great place to start for printing. Yeah. Stu saying Neptune no longer listed for sale. It's just, they don't list them when they're out of stock, mate. I think basically as soon as Elegoo send them over to Amazon ready for sale, they list them. They normally come over in like batches of about 10 or 20 at a time, and they sell out pretty quick. So you've got to keep looking. They only came out kind of maybe 2 or 3 months ago, something like that. I think when I bought mine, they'd only just been released. So they haven't been on the market very long. But yeah, when they go online on the Amazon store, as soon as they're up there, they sell out within a day or two. So you just have to kind of go on and check every day if you're looking for one. James Braze, he bought one recently, and he was doing the same thing, just checking every day, and he was dead lucky. They went up for sale, I think, like 2 days after he started looking, so he got one as well. Board Game Dungeon says, how long did it take you to print the house, or to paint the house? To paint it, mate, it took me probably, I would say, maybe about an afternoon. Like I said before, the whole thing was just primed in brown paint, and everything else is pretty much just dry brushed, really. It's nothing too serious. I just put a podcast on and I just sat and painted it, so it didn't take long to paint. Ted Williams saying, Tabletop World do similar sized coaching in to the model you've got in resin for £84, so your version seems like a great deal. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking price wise. I was thinking somewhere between about £80 for plastic and about £100 for resin. I was kind of around about that rate. Gary saying, yeah, I work it out to be a little less than 50p a day per printer if you're running 24/7. It's about the same as full spec games PC servers. Yeah, like I say, I've not really had them long enough to see any difference in electric bills. We do have gas heating as well, so it's not like I'm seeing a drop in like gas consumption through the summer. It's not like I'm seeing a drop in electric for not heating in the summer, if you like, and that this is taking over. So yeah, once I get sort of some electric bills in, I'll see if there's any difference. But yeah, like you see, I'm not expecting it to be kind of like phenomenally more expensive. Ice Moon saying the resin prints need to be cleaned with a cleaning solution and then cured with more UV light. Yeah, they do, mate. Gary saying he's a commercial printer. Some stuff I'm allowed to print and sell as I purchase a license. Yeah, I purchased the license for doing these bases and stuff. So all these bases, the things like the one that I did for this Drum of the Nautilus and stuff, I've got the commercial license to print and sell those ones. But the houses and stuff, I didn't buy that. Board Game Dungeon says, can you recommend any YouTube resources that helped you make your decision? What I will say is there's a YouTube channel called Uncle Jesse. Does a lot of 3D printing stuff. He's quite heavily sponsored by Elegoo, so do bear that in mind. He does have a lot of Elegoo stuff on there, but I'd kind of already made my mind up. I was looking for an Elegoo printer, and then because he had like a lot of information on his channel, it was a good one to watch. I'm trying to think where else there is as well. There is... Oh, what's the one I've just been watching tonight? There's a if you see a printer that you like the look of price wise, if you type it in, you will get hundreds of kind of reviews and stuff. Just be careful. Lots of YouTubers, especially within miniature gaming as well, have been sent 3D printers for free. And I'm not suggesting that their reviews are not honest and 100% official, like sort of and officially their own thoughts. But quite a few have been sent printers for free. Quite a few have done paid reviews for them as well. So just bear that in mind as well when you're watching some of those videos. And watch out for the ones that are sort of paid promotions, because sometimes they're not really a review. Sometimes they really are just showing off something they've been sent for free. The stuff I'm telling you about tonight, I bought all the printers and all the materials with my own money. I've not done any kind of sponsored stuff. It's my own. It's my own opinion as a hobbyist, in the same way as if you were picking them up. Gary's got a list of a few there as well. Yeah, second Uncle Jesse too. That was the one I've been kind of watching. James Brace says, I checked at 5 a.m. and they were out of stock. I checked again at 7:30 and they only had one left. Yeah, it's funny like that, mate, isn't it? Blitz says, which one would you use for the base insert? Would PLA be good enough for those? Personally, mate, I don't think it would be, if I'm honest. I'll get some pictures up in the Facebook groups and in the Patreon and stuff like that. But the detail is really, really good from the resin stuff. But what I would add, if you were only really wanting to print miniatures stuff and maybe some like resin bases and inserts, the cheapest Elegoo Mars, the older one, would still be more than good enough, I think. Obviously, the one I've got gives a little bit more detail, but I mean, obviously you can't. I wonder if I put this back on again. I wonder if the light's good enough to. It's quite bright, that camera there. Let it. I don't know why it's not focusing. It was when I was testing it, obviously, but yeah, you can kind of see the base there. And then if I show you these the Mr. E's one here that I did as well, you can kind of see if that focuses in. Come on, zoom in. Of course, it's not going to. We'll do it there. There we go. Oh, actually, the closer I get, the better it seems to get. So let's get in close there. You can kind of see the detail on the base and stuff. So, and then if I show this one off as well, you can see the grain and the wood and stuff, and that's all just done kind of with just dry brushing and stuff. So obviously there's enough depth of kind of quality in the resin print to really pick out that wood grain with a bit of a wash and a bit of dry brushing. Now I seem to have managed to get that to work as well. What I'll do is I'll show you if I just take the roof off this, so you can kind, if I come in close, you should be able to see the layer lines there. They're gonna come on, focus for me. Nah, it's going to play. Oh, there we go. You can kind of see them there, and that's more to do with the way the light's hitting them. In reality, it's hardly noticeable, if I'm perfectly honest. I wouldn't want it like for a you can kind of see the lines there. Oh, can you see the lines? That's just the light hitting it really, really. No, it's not going to do that one. It's. I think basically what happens is as you come up like layers, as you come up steps, the definition you actually see the ridges, if you like, when you start to use the plastic ones. Andrew says there's a Neptune on the US Amazon. I don't know if the wife will let me buy, but it's about the same price as all the models I just bought. Yeah, that's one of the things, mate. Yeah. Red Rose Wargaming saying 3D Printing Pro helped me when it came to learning Chitterbox. I've not really done a lot of like sort of self-supporting stuff. Most of the stuff I've used has come with pre-support or didn't need support. And I actually found sort of just printing a lot of like base inserts flat to the actual bed itself, rather than sort of supporting them. Not only did they come off nice and clean, and I had no issues with them, they obviously take half the time to print, because it's like it's a lot less layers if you're printing something like that than if you're printing something like that. Busy says just converted it and it's £145.47. What was that for, mate? Well, was this on the American site or something, was it? Tony says, attention all, lock in me or any other scratch builder in your ensuite and claiming that you have a 3D printer is false economy. We cost a fortune. John says there's only one Tony Howell as well. We can't all lock him in our ensuite. Take care. I am Lord Maiden there, mate. I hope you're alright. Scott saying, how do you find the Elegoo Neptune? Absolutely more than happy with it, mate. Like I said, Scott, earlier on, I've had no issues with it. It's never really put a foot wrong. I did have a couple. In saying that, I did have a couple of issues when I moved my printer from inside the house to the garage. I was getting like a little bit of curling on the bottom, off the bottom of the plate, and it's just to do with temperature change in the garage. Like when it gets a bit colder in the night time versus when I've got heating on during the day and stuff. So I've bought like an enclosure thing for it. Like it looks a bit like a tent that goes around it, and what that's doing is it's kind of keeping it a bit of a more consistent temperature. And since I've done that, I've seen a big difference in the quality of the prints as well. So it was well worth the, I think it was about 50 quid or something like that. It was well worth the money of buying that. Lord Nova says, told you you can print good FDM pieces for terrain and the layer lines won't be too bad. Do you know what it is? Yeah, I've completely sort of changed my opinion on them when I've seen them firsthand. I've seen some stuff online that has looked absolutely awful. And I wrongly assumed that was basically the quality level that was capable with this stuff. I think when you photograph it, it looks worse than it actually is to the eye. And a bit like when you're painting a miniature and you get it up too close. Like if I it's like me showing you, for example, it's like me picking that building up and going, look at that, doesn't that look good? And you all go, oh yeah, it looks great. And then me getting really, really close with the camera and showing you the fine detail that you would never ever see, especially once you've primed it and stuff anyway. I've definitely kind of changed my opinion. However, I did have to kind of see it firsthand. So I appreciate like you're just taking my word for it, and you might see stuff online and think, nah, I don't think it's good enough. I would really, really recommend trying to see something in the flesh. If you're considering it and that's what's putting you off, try and see something in the flesh. Tony says, I'm sure that some has Luke from Geek Gaming in their sites. Scott says, Lychee is a much better and easier slicer to use. I just use the what do you call it slicer, mate? The one that came with it. It came with, I forget which one it is now. It's not Chitterbox for the resin stuff I've been using, and I forget. Actually, it's on this computer here. The hell's it called? Oh, Slicer. I just use the not Pura Slicer. Sorry. What the hell's it called? Cura. I just use Cura for the PLA stuff, and it's never given me any problems, to be honest. Blizzard saying, I bought some PLA printed scatter terrain and most of them being really bad layer lines. I'm pretty much sold on resin for what I need. Yeah, to be honest, mate, like bits of scatter terrain, smaller stuff, I would definitely recommend. I definitely recommend resin over PLA. But when you're starting to get into bigger stuff, things like we've obviously got this. If I just put the roof back on it and stuff. Things like these big buildings and stuff. Obviously, it's just so. This is just primed brown. This is Halford's camo brown. It's a nice kind of matte dark brown. It's a great base color. It's exactly what I used to do the big building. So this building here, I'm just picking up the roof. This was all primed in that brown as well, and that was what I used for it. But yeah, like if you're doing stuff of this size, PLA is definitely your friend. But if you're doing stuff like little bits of like sort of barrels and things like that, like sort of small scatter terrain, resin is the way to go, 100%. Scott says, what's the build volume on the Neptune? Oh, I'm trying to remember now, mate. Let me, I'll tell you what, let me have a look. And I'll be able to tell you. Neptune 2 build volume. I think it's the same size as an Ender 3, to be honest. So it's 220 millimeters by 220 millimeters by 250 millimeters. So it's a print volume like that of the Creality Ender 3. So yeah, that's kind of its build volume. So it's still more than big enough for what I need, mate. Oh yeah, Ice Moon's just there. I didn't actually see that. Yeah, James is saying Cura. You can't really set one up outside. Scott says, what brand of PLA are you using? I'm using Tinmori, just Tinmori PLA, just grey. I bought a reel of it when I first got it. It worked absolutely fine straight out of the box without the box settings, and I just keep buying the same one, mate. I've not changed it. John's saying there we've got a coal bunker with your name on it. Christian is sharing the link there as well for Amazon with a new 3D printer. If you want a new 3D printer, don't forget Andy's affiliate link. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, if you are buying any big sort of purchases like that, please, and you're getting them from Amazon, please do remember to go through the affiliate link. It doesn't cost you any more, and it helps the channel out without you spending any more money. So it makes perfect sense. So that's kind of my thoughts about 3D printing, folks. How we're doing 10:15. That's probably as good a time as any. I'm happy to continue talking about the 3D printing stuff. Any questions anybody's got, if I can answer them, I will. But I'm also happy to talk about anything you want as well. I'm going to have a drink because my throat's dry now. James says Tin Murray matte grey is dark grey. And grey is light grey. Just found that when I opened a new reel and I thought it was the same. Yeah, I've only ever bought just the grey one, right? Jim saying, what site did you get that house from? Let me find out, mate. I will find out where it's from. Because I forget now. It's on My Mini Factory, so you can buy it from there. So if I go into my Mini Factory file, I can have a look at in my library and see what it's called. If you look for City of Firwood, FIRWOOD by STL Miniatures, that's who made it. So the company's called STL Miniatures, and yeah, it was City of Firwood was the collection. It comes with like a wizard's tower. There's a small house. I've got another one that I've printed over there as well. There's a small house. There's a big house. I think that one is called the large house. There's a tavern. There's all sorts of stuff, mate, as well. Scott saying, is there a way to link the affiliate link to my standard Amazon account? I use Amazon loads. The best way to do it, mate, is to click the affiliate link and save it as a favorite. So that when you go looking for Amazon, just click on the favorite and it'll take you straight through that way. That's the best way to do it. Board Game Dungeon says, thank you and thanks to everyone in the chat for the feedback. You are welcome. Hopefully it was helpful. Jesus says, I'm nervous about handling toxic chemicals. To be honest, mate, I mean, like resin is not like it's not like handling water as an example. It can be potentially dangerous. You don't want to get it kind of all over your skin. You certainly don't want to be getting it in your eyes or drinking it or anything like that. But if you handle it like you would handle sort of bleach, if you were putting bleach down a toilet, if you handle it like you were using any kind of cleaning materials, like if you put gloves on, if you wear kind of a pair of safety glasses when you're kind of pouring things out and stuff, like I wouldn't say I'm complacent now, because I think that would be sort of, it would sound unsafe, but I'm comfortable with it now to the point I've just got the process of going, like, I know when the print's finished, I'll take the lid off my cure station, I'll get the IPA ready, I'll get the bracket ready, I'll take the lid off my 3D printer, I'll put my gloves on, I'll unscrew the build plate, I'll put the little bracket on it, I'll put it into the wash station, then I'll take my gloves off, put the lid back on, set the wash away, and at that point, like, there's nothing to clean up, because even the build plate that's got resin on it is going into the wash and cure station, which is why I said it's been money absolutely 100% well spent. There's no cleanup process really, because what I'm doing is I'm lifting it off and putting it in to clean, and then when it comes off, I then put my gloves on again, take the actual print off the plate and put it to one side to be cured, and then I basically get like a what's it called, like a microfiber cloth, dry off the build plate because it's just got isopropyl alcohol on it at this point, and put it back onto the printer and put the lid back on the printer. So I'm not really dealing with anything too nasty on a day-to-day basis. The worst it gets really is if you've got a failed print and you want to empty out the bath back into the bottle, and again you're using a funnel with a filter, you've got your gloves on, you've got some eye protection on. It's not as bad as you'd think. But yeah, if you treat it like you would treat bleach, that's kind of like that's the kind of level. It's not, you're not. It's not like something off a film where basically if you mix the two things together, it's going to blow your house up. If you treat it like you treat bleach, that's probably a good way to kind of to think of it. Bacon is in as well. Yeah, VG is saying use gloves, wear glasses, don't spend an hour with your face over it in a closet breathing it. Yeah. But Bradley Key says, I just ordered one. I'm so can't wait to use it. Scott saying, for some reason I no longer get any notifications for Discord, even though I have them set for on. You might have to uninstall it, mate, and reinstall it again. There's nothing's changed, I don't think. I don't know why you're not getting anything. I certainly haven't kind of kicked you out of the group or anything like that. Have a check, mate. If you can still access the group, you should be still getting the notifications. Tizzy Braindrain says, stop my patent to drop a like since I've been forgetting to drop one recently. Thank you very much, mate. How are we doing? 45 likes, 65 people. Come on, folks. See if we can get it over 50 likes. It really does help. What happens is when you like the video, YouTube knows that the viewers are enjoying it, and it pushes it out to more people. So it does help. So I appreciate it if you are enjoying it. And Jason saying, thanks for the tips. You are more than welcome, mate. I think there was a bit of chat there as well about Uncle Adam's reign in hell. Where was this one? VJ is saying, yeah, he's keen to go on the hunt for some awesome new demons and monster STLs. Yeah, because you can use any mini you want. VJ is saying, perfect chance to do something with all those cool demon sculpts. It certainly is. Jason was saying he just heard about it. And I think somebody was saying, where was it? Somebody was just saying, I think it was, yeah, Phil M was just saying, yeah, Ash at Guerrilla Miniature Games has a YouTube review of the rules. Yes. I watched a little bit of it actually. One thing he did say was, he said it was kind of weird that they had set the board size the same as Warcry and Kill Team. He said because if you're into Games Workshop games and you've already got boards that size, you're probably not looking for independent rules. And if you are looking for independent rules, you probably haven't got a board size the size of the Games Workshop games. So I only watched about the first 5 minutes, but it was one of the first things he said. I thought it was quite interesting. VJ says, yeah, any plans to check out Reign in Hell as a Warcry fan? I think you'd enjoy it. Nah, not really, mate. I enjoy Warcry. I don't really sort of feel a need to give it a try. Scott's saying, just recently purchased another Glory Stay in the Core and Carnival, both starter sets and some MDF terrain. Very nice. James says, I think I need to unblock my nozzle. Can't get that first layer down suddenly. What do you mean you can't get the layer down, mate? Is there nothing coming out? Or is it not sticking to the bed? If there's nothing coming out, then potentially it's getting blocked, mate, or something like that. Tony saying, sounds like the same rules as epoxy resin. Avoid contact with the skin, make sure you have eye protection, and keep application careful and controlled. Yeah. Anna saying just filmed our first game of Reign in Hell. Very nice. Jason saying, what kind of dice does it use? I think it uses D10s. I think it was. It might have been D10s, D12s. I think I heard Ash talking about. James says he's getting blobs. That's kind of weird, mate. And is it a new reel of plastic as well? Have you got another one you could switch it over with and try? Yeah, and I've seen you need D12s, but yeah, mostly D6s once you're in the game. Yeah. Tiny Wargame says, liked. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're at 53. Can we push it to 60? We've got 65 people in the chat. Can we push it to 60? Peter saying, pending a daylight check, I may have just finished my Malifaux team. Very nicely done, mate. I'm proud of you. Really, really good. Jim saying, so blobs are snagging all over the place and making it weird. Just swapping the PLA, but I did have 2 successful prints with this reel. So it might not be that, mate. Blobs and snagging all over the place. Is it a temperature thing? Have you got the temperature set right? Have you got any? Is it feeding off the reel okay? Is it jamming as it's feeding off? Like, because sometimes you get it where it's kind of like dragging back a bit. Scott saying blob sounds either a block nozzle or too high a temperature. Yeah, I must admit I've not really played much with temperature. I did a little bit when I moved the location of it to a different room. I played with the temperature a little bit, but once I'd found stuff that worked, I didn't really mess about with it at that point. Scott said he's got the Sunken San Cancignano set. I'm gonna have to Google that now, mate, and see what the hell that is. Let me see what that one looks. San Can see. Oh no. Carnival. Let's see if it comes up. I'm just getting loads of stuff for Venice now. Yeah, James said he's not changed the temperatures. Jason says thumbs up given, well deserved. Good show as always. Thank you very much, mate. Scott said it's on Goblin Gaming. Right, I will have a look on there then and see if it's. We'll have a look at the terrain. Corny Volley. Let's have a look. I'm obviously not spelling it right. I'm having a nightmare tonight. Let's have a look. Board games, paint and hobby terrain. It'll be by TT Combat. Oh, of course they haven't got a TT Combat section there. Is it under fantasy, historical? Bloody hell. Oh, I'll have to have a look after the chat, mate. I can't see it at the minute. This is one of the white box. I'll tell you what I do. If I put in TT Combat and see what comes up for that, and we'll see if we can find it, and at least I know what we're talking about here. It'd be nice to at least know which one we're talking about here. Some of the townhouse stuff and that they do, some of the fantasy stuff's quite nice. Because the old stuff I got from TT Combat was bloody awful. But I do know it's changed a lot since I. Oh, I've found it now, mate. I tell you what, that's good value. That. I like the look of it, mate. Looks very nice. It's nice. It comes with a little bit of sort of resin terrain as well. I like the sunken city look to it. Just makes it a bit different, doesn't it? Looks pretty cool. Where are we up here? Tiny Wargame saying some great advice on 3D printing. Many thanks. You are welcome, fella. You are very welcome. Fiji, yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, but I did see what you were planning to do, mate. Yeah, it is very gothic noir type stuff, isn't it? Probably going to have to model the minis myself. I tell you what, mate, that's dedication. That. And I've seen we play with some Nurgle and some Spires. I think a custom mini warband would feel a lot better than just random. That's kind of how I feel about miniature agnostic games in general, really, the idea of them feeling cohesive, basically. But yeah, you can certainly do that one. Scott said he's going to buy the £150 Street of Venice terrain set. Yeah, I mean, I must admit one thing about the Carnivale game, or Carnival, however the hell you pronounce it. It's the terrain sets, it's the boards that I've seen that make me want to give it a try, because I think it's got some absolutely beautiful looking tables. Tony's saying, yeah, they've stepped up their game with their new releases. Yeah, I bought some like Walking Dead like houses, and I'm going back. Oh God, it must be about 3 or 4 years ago, and I've still got them, to be honest. When I was bringing everything down to put in the garage here, to like all my terrain and stuff's over there, like for the game and for the studio and stuff. I ended up just putting them back in a box and putting them aloft, because I thought I'm never gonna put them on a table because I think they look awful. But yeah, it's just definitely like older style stuff, if you like. VGC and dedication, one thing I do not lack. I mean, I get up at 5 AM to run. I'll be here for these streams. You are definitely one of the most dedicated people I know, mate. That is absolutely certain. Absolutely. Scott saying, check out the miniatures range for some amazing minis. I did buy a copy of is it Wargames Illustrated or something like that, that had a free Carnival miniature in it, just so I could have a look and see what I thought of the quality. It was all right. It seemed pretty good. It's one of them things I would love to go to. I want to get to like conventions and see this kind of stuff in kind of up close and personal, if you like. Right, folks, how we doing? I think what we're going to do is I'm going to call it a night there, I think, purely for the fact is I've had a couple of late nights over the bank holiday weekend with copious amounts of alcohol, and then early mornings with a little child. So I'm flagging a bit today, I'll be perfectly honest. I've had a lot of sun and not a lot of sleep and too much drink. So Scott said, I'll bring it over for a game. Nice one, fella. And VG says he's checking out Lovecraft Monster Sculpts for another Cabal as well. Lots of tentacles. Nice one, fella. So, thank you very much, folks. What I would say was, if anybody would like to support me and support the channel with Patreon, It's patreon.com/BlackJack Legacy. Don't join today because you'll be charged twice. It's the last day of the month. If you would like to support me, join tomorrow. I'm just trying to public service announcement there. You would end up be paying for like an hour or something, an hour's access today, and then you'll end up paying again tomorrow. So yes, please do check that out. I will see you all on Wednesday for the Wednesday night hobby hangout. We might do some Armada this week. I think, I'm not sure, either Armada or Moonstone. I'm not sure what we're going to do this week. And I will show off as well. I've finished painting up the models I was doing last week, the Wild West Exodus ones. I've finished that whole that crew now, that warband, if you like, or whatever the hell they call them. Posse, that's the word I'm looking for. I finished all of those ones. So yeah, I'll show you them off on Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine. And we'll speak on Wednesday. Thanks very much. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.